Hey, I'm Ron Drotos from keyboardimprov.com, and welcome to our journey through the real book number 233, which is Minority by Gigi Gryce. It's the 233rd tune in the real book. It is on page 273 because a lot of the tunes have 2 pages, so I've numbered them just to be able to reference them in these videos, but you can find it alphabetically or on page 273, Minority. And the whole idea with all these jazz piano lessons is to learn these standards in a way that we understand more about the music in general through these standards. It's not the other way around. We're not like studying the bebop era and then looking at a bebop tune. We're saying, oh, this is presented to us. We're just going one page at a time. So Minority, what is it? What's behind the tune? Where's it coming from? And it's kind of a fascinating way to do it because we don't know what's coming up next. We did Milano last time by John Lewis, Minority today. Miss Anne by Eric Dolphy will be in the next video, which is totally different, but coming from a similar place in some ways. I mean, John Lewis and Eric Dolphy both participated in the third stream jazz movement of the 50s, and Minority is one direction that bebop went to. That's sort of our segue into the historical thing here. Minority represents one branch of the tree that maybe bebop is the beginning of, and then Miss Anne maybe a second one, which we'll get to that next week. But basically, Minority by Gigi Gryce, who is a wonderful saxophonist in sort of bebop and getting into the post-bop style, specifically a style that's now called hard bop. What is hard bop and why is it different than bebop? Well, basically, bebop was a music that, it was an outgrowth of the swing era, yes. Especially, Charlie Parker playing Kansas City swing music with Benny Moten's big band and Dizzy Gillespie with Billy Eckstine. They came out of the swing era, but it wasn't for dancing as such. One of the reasons was that in the early 40s in New York, there was a cabaret tax that came into effect among New York City establishments that had nightclubs that had dancing. If they had dancing, all of a sudden they had to pay an extra tax. So what did the club owners do? A lot of them, they just covered the dance floor in tables and chairs so that people could eat and drink and listen to the music, but they couldn't dance, so they didn't have to pay the tax. But all of a sudden, the dance bands were replaced by bands that were more for listening purposes. They still had swing era people doing that, Art Tatum, Billie Holiday, musicians like that, but at the same time, it gave an opening to the beboppers to come in because they didn't have to play dance music. So they play these tunes and, bebop, 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 bebop. That's how the name came about. So it makes sense culturally how it evolved. Well, that was early to mid 40s. 10 years later, early to mid into the late 50s, times are changing a little bit, and some musicians were saying we like that, but we kind of miss that, not necessarily playing for dances all the time and being locked into that strict bum, 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 quarter note pulse, but at the same time, we kind of like some of the riffs that were from the swing era, or maybe we don't want to be so sort of frenetic all the time. So you get tunes like Minority. So you get things like ba-dum, and then a little rest, and then ba-ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, then the repeat, ba-ba. I mean, how many bebop tunes are there that actually have a very identifiable rhythmic riff like that repeats 4 bars later? Not many. Right? Not many at all, really. And then this melodic sequence. Then most of the tune is based on that bum bum ba 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 bum, that riff, or that rhythmic motif. That's very different than bebop, which would have maybe if this was Charlie Parker, I don't know, maybe it would have been like bum ba ba da da ba da da ba da ba da da ba da 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 ba da ba da da ba da ba da ba da ba da 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 ba 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 da 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 ba da 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 ba ba da ba da 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 da. Maybe the melody might have been like that, right? It could still be very catchy, but usually not as identifiably rhythmic and repeating, sort of with these almost swing era riffs that repeat, or bluesy kind of riffs in a non-blues context, if that makes any sense. Sort of returning to roots, maybe by 20%. The other thing is they would write these rhythmic figures in the melodies that the rhythm section, the drums and the piano and bass, could lock into. And you see that even in the real book in measure 8, 9, 11, there's a little rhythmic figure. So it's so the drums. You see it sometimes in bebop, but not so much. They've been grooving high. Beat up, you know, that kind of thing. But Dizzy, again, was influenced by the swing era. So it's not that I'm saying it didn't exist in bebop. It wasn't emphasized. Those catchy rhythms that the rhythm section would have caught as well. But in Hard Bop, it really was. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, Horace Silver and the Jazz Messengers, and then on his own. Clifford Brown, Max Roach Quintet, even a tune like Joy Spring, which is very bebop-y, you know, then that bebop, sort of locks us in a very hard bop type way. That's where minority is coming from. Why is it called minority? Well, I think it's a play on words, because these are 2-5-1s in major keys, but then they resolve, instead of to a major one, it's a minor chord, sort of a deceptive resolution in a way, which then in many cases here becomes the next 2-5-1. So the chords resolve to minor chords instead of, the progressions resolve to minor chords where you expect the major. I think maybe that's the derivation of the term, but I don't really know. I don't know if anybody knows. If you know, please leave a comment, and we'll all sort of help each other. One thing I like doing on this, you notice it's an F minor sixth, and that's a very nice sound. The tonic chord being a minor sixth. You can add the ninth, which is really in the melody there. So it's an F minor sixth, F minor triad with a D and a G. And this is a very identifiable sound of the 50s, right? Even movie soundtracks might just go. Very identifiable, almost like the James Bond, which would have been with a minor with a major seventh. The sound was in the air there. And you know, we could use it. We don't have to. We could play a minor seventh. You know, there's minor sevenths later on. But particularly on this tonic chord, it's one of the few tunes that I really like emphasizing the minor sixth. I personally don't hear it all the time on tunes. I think it's a sort of a second choice. You know, go for the minor sevenths like it's written. But if you hear that sixth, you know, Herbie Hancock would have done stuff like that sometimes, or does stuff like that. He came out of this sort of little post-hard bop, Herbie Hancock. You know, we can try things that work on the minor sixth chord. One thing that works really nicely, especially over two measures, is we alternate an F minor sixth with an E diminished seventh chord in all the inversions. Like in block chord style. But this is what I like doing on this. You can outline them as arpeggios. So the F minor sixth, E, or in this case, you know, G diminished, and then the inversion. And you can do I think what I'm going to do is play an introduction with a C pedal tone, the 5 pedal tone, and I'm going to and just lead into that. It's kind of nice. It just brings me back to at least my image of that era, gets me out of my usual stuff, and leads me nicely into minority. So here we go. C pedal tone, alternating in the right hand between F minor sixth and E diminished seventh chords. All right, let's see where it takes us. You can do anything on this tune. You can play bebop, you can play more riff-oriented post-bop, you can get a little bluesy. We can walk the bass line, rootless voicings, we can play block chords. And anything we want in the right hand. A lot of stuff. Most people play a tune like this, many players at least, and it's sort of the same thing the whole time. But we can get all the layers that we would on, say, an old stride tune, or more like a Miles Davis associated tune, like from the 60s. All those layers and different colors we can get on a tune like this too. Yeah, so that F minor 6/9 I was showing at the beginning with the, it's implied, it's the first chord with the implied ninth, which is in the melody. You can do a flourish on it. Just have some fun. It's almost like you picture the cymbal going, the drummer, you know, we'll do a cymbal roll at the end. Beautiful type of way to end a tune. Hopefully this gives you some ideas, a lot of ideas on how to play, not just minority, but a lot of tunes in this hard bop style, which often sounds kind of monochromatic, right? The way we play it, but we can, it's the same throughout, right? I'm sort of playing my licks and this and that, but there's a lot of colors here. There's a lot of arcs, you know, pianistic arcs. You could say dramatic arcs. When's it getting high, coming down, subdued, getting, you know, up to the high point of your solo, bringing in some block chords, trying things that, so it's not just, okay, I'm going to play my 2-5-1 licks over a tune like this, which is kind of tempting, right? Because it's a lot of 2-5-1s. Hopefully this gives you some ideas that you can instantly apply to your playing, or if you're taking the long approach, is getting into this, play the melody, and then gradually bring some of these things in over the next few weeks, months, or even years. It's a whole journey. That's why I always say enjoy the journey and let the music flow. We have to enjoy every step we're at. If you're interested, I have some links down for you below, both some free stuff and my video course, which has hundreds of videos from all the way from beginning, intermediate, and advanced jazz, also jazz ballads, tons of stuff in there to help you understand how to play these tunes and not just sort of by rote or by the book, so to speak, even if it's the real book. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next video.